Greetings and salutations. It is El Jefe, your humble correspondent to the final expense sales world. Thank you for joining me. Today you are on a role-playing hot seat type of training where I grill my willing agents to death on their ability to rehearse what I teach. I held nothing back, but I'm polite in instructing you on how to present final expense, broken down into different parts of the sales presentation. So the theme this week is to talk about the actual product presentation. So there's 4 steps to my sales process. The first being, there it is. The first step being rapport and introduction. The second step, pre-qualifying and fact-finding. The third step, presenting the product and positioning. And the fourth and final section is closing and answering objections. All of this is critical to your success. And in this particular section, the good news is that it is pretty much a downward hill struggle from here. Meaning, you've, at this point, pre-qualified your clients effectively. They understand, at least from a budgetary standpoint, and kind of have coherently expressed to you, the agent, what it is they want and what they're trying to accomplish. And you've pre-qualified them. You've determined objectively that they are a high odds prospect, right? So as long as you follow the script and you don't goof up, it's kind of hard to screw up at this point because you've got all the odds in your favor, right? So you're going to be spending your time with a better suited prospect. So I am going to start calling on people now to take me through being a prospect. So I'm going to call on Scott. Hey, Scott, you want to play prospect or play agent?
I'll play prospect. I'll play agent, whatever you want me to do.
Anything and everything. That's the spirit. All right.
Okay.
I mean, I'm interested in hearing your the presentation at this point. So if you want to just start from somewhere and then I'll play prospect and we'll go from there.
Well, my presentation changes each time, and so I'll make it a good college try here. I said,
Yeah,
"Hi, Mr.
fine.
Duford, how the world are you?"
Say that again.
I said, "Hi, Mr. Duford, how the world are you?"
Well, I'm doing good.
Well, that's great. Excuse me. The reason I came by this morning is obviously you wanted some information regarding final expense, burial expense, and you sent this card back in to me. You remember filling out this card?
Yeah. So just off script real quick, Scott, if you can fast forward through this part where you just introduce yourself and talk about, you know, your background and then skip over the pre-qualification section, it kind of just walk me through what you would do to explain the product to the client and why it's better than, say, an alternative.
Well, it costs $20 a month. You want it?
Guys, that's as easy as that, right?
That's pretty much it. Basically, Mr. Duford, the reason we're talking here is because you tell me you want to be buried instead of cremated. Did I hear you correct on that?
Correct.
Okay. Are you aware of what the costs are for a burial in this area?
About 10,000 is what I'm
About
thinking.
10,000. Well, actually, that's on the low end. I've talked to many different funeral homes and folks that are in that kind of business, and they're saying that average is probably anywhere from $13,000 to $17,000, depending on where and what kind of services you want. So tell me, do you have any life insurance now?
No.
You don't. All right. And in regards to this, had you thought of an amount that was comfortable in your budget? Typically, a man at your age is 68 years old who doesn't smoke, and we've already asked about the health question. You seem to have pretty good health. It's going to run somewhere between $150 and $200 a month. Does that fit inside your budget?
150 does. 200 is a little steep.
150, okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to punch it in the computer here, and we'll take a look exactly what kind of coverage I can get you for $150 a month.
Okay.
Now, specifically, what this coverage does is different than most coverages you've heard of beforehand. This is not going to go away. It's not going to go up in price. I don't care if you live to be 121 years old. It's still going to be there as long as you pay your premiums in place.
Okay, great.
What else you want me to go into? You've already agreed to 150. I'm starting to write.
So so let me throw some objections, and I'll kind of tie this back into my training. So,
Okay.
Scott, I mean, I can afford 150 a month, but I get these mailers all the time that say I can spend, looking at your numbers, half of the price and get the same amount of coverage. I mean, why would I want to buy from you when I could buy it for cheaper?
Well, Mr. Duford, you bring up a very, very good point. And I think I'm aware of the mailers that you get. You get stuff from AARP, you get stuff from Globe Life.
Yeah, it's AARP. That's who does it. I think New York
That's
Life.
AARP.
Yeah.
And I'm very familiar with that. As a matter of fact, if you'd like to take a look at this, I happen to have one of the AARP mailers and yes, I'm over 60, and yes, they mail it to me, and it's got my name on it. But if you'll take a look at there in the fine print, what does that fine print says? It says specifically, and we'll read it together, this coverage lapses once you reach age 80. Were you aware?
Really? No. I thought all insurance was the same.
No. Now, if you kick the bucket prior to age 80, this will pay, and there's no doubt about it, and it's a good insurance plan. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
However, we never know how long we're going to live or how long we've got left, and wouldn't it be nice to you and your family to have something that's permanent, that never goes up in price and never goes away? See, there's two types of insurance that most people are unaware of. One is called term insurance, and term insurance means basically terminating. Once you reach a certain
Right.
age,
Yeah.
it's going to cover you up to that age, but then it terminates. And that's what this AARP does. It basically terminates at age 80. Now, what I'm proposing to you is specifically, yes, it might be a little more expensive, and hey, we can work on the price if we have to. But the bottom line is this: it ain't going away, and you're going to have it for the entire amount that you live. Now, I just want to say your middle initial was Z, right?
Yes, for Zeus.
Okay. And I
Yep.
go, well, I was wondering if it was H for Heffy.
Hefe. Yes.
Yeah.
That works too. So off
I
script
just
here.
basically go into the app at that point.
Yeah. So that was good. That's kind of where I wanted to lead you, was that conversation. So what I like to do, and this kind of comes down to, I don't know, stylistic differences, I guess you can say. I prefer to teach, and you're experienced, so it's a little bit different. But I think it's best for you guys who are brand new to final expense, or if you've never sold life insurance before, is in this section, what you want to do is name the competition. Talk about them openly. There are many people will say, well, let me think about it, if you don't present to them information on the competition, because they want to think about shopping it. So you want to overcome that objection before it becomes an issue. And so when I gave that objection, the conversation that Scott had was perfect with me. He explained what term was. He simplified the understanding of it, right? Term terminates. Couldn't get any more simple than that. And showed me in the fine print exactly what it does. So he told me what it does, and then he showed me what it does, right? Like a good case, you want a preponderance of proof, and nothing's better than the smoking gun from the sales literature provided by the company. And what that does is, I believe that conceptually removes it conceptually sells what you're doing to the client a lot better, and eliminates the risks of people second guessing or having to possibly give up their coverage, or because it's too expensive and this thing came in the mail, it's AARP. At least at this point, we've got a shot for, hopefully they'll remember term is bad, whole life is good. So if you ever see term, don't buy it. So it's a way, I think, to prevent the shopping objection, but then also prevent replacements potentially, because a lot of these companies do a really good job of hiding the fine print, and the vast majority of people don't know it. They don't know about the fine print. Now, any questions so far, Scott?
Question for you.
Yeah.
So what do you do if I've gone in and quoted $150 a month, and your little expense quota only goes up to like $90? I mean, how do you determine how much coverage you're going to get for $150?
Yeah, you have to, it's going to vary by company, right? So, what I would do, let's say in that case, the max coverage is $100 with XYZ company. What you can do is a strategy called stacking, and then you can just take the remainder, $50, and see which company will write the most or the best or most competitive product and amount of coverage for that. So then when you present to them, you would show them, okay, here's what we can get for 100, 125, 150, 175, whatever your price points are. And then show the total coverage, and then just easily explain to them, if you go to 150 or you go to 175, you're going to have, or all of these really in this case, in this example, is you're going to have two companies. We're going to max out our coverage with the most competitive offer. Then we're going to use this other company to add additional more. So that way we get the most coverage for you and you have peace of mind.
Okay.
Have you had that happen yet?
Well, actually, I had no, it hadn't happened yet. But I thought of it because I didn't know whether we'd switch to a regular universal life policy at that point, or just stick with the final.
Yeah, I mean that is a valid transition if the client is healthy and in good shape. I did a consultation with a large term insurance agency that gets like 300 leads a day. No, it's 900 is what they said. And I asked them, what are their stats on conversions of leads into term insurance policy? That's what they mostly sold for people 60 and older. And he said, the operations manager said, they only convert 30% of their business into sales because the other 70% get declined or rated up so high because of their age and possible health history that they just don't accept the rate. So I say all this because I tend, unless they're in perfect shape, I tend to stay away from your fully underwritten products, even non-med though. Just unless there's just a situation where it calls for it, for sure. But the odds are against you that you're actually going to be able to place it. You're probably going to be in a position where 7 out of 10 times it gets declined. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Thanks.
Cool. Okay. Scott, anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Okay. Scott's going to be at my February conference, February 21st. He's going to be a speaker talking about the wonderful world of annuities. So make sure that you join if you can. All right. Whoops, sorry. I don't know how I muted myself. Oh, I know I did. Push the button. Let me call on someone else to continue to play prospect. Let's see. Giovanni, do you want to do this?
Yeah, sure thing.
Okay. So you play agent, I play prospect. Okay with you?
Sorry, I was having computer problems. And
That's good.
so I literally just came in. We are role playing from what part?
So let's role play so up to this point, here's what we've covered and then what we're going to cover. So we've introduced ourselves, we built rapport, we've asked all the health questions, we asked them why they sent the card in, we got budget, bank account. Now what we're going to do is explain how our product works relative to the competition. So this is the point where you jump in and explain, okay, here's what these guys do, why it's bad, here's what we do, why it's good.
Okay, so then this is what we watched yesterday.
Yeah, basically, correct. Yeah, it's just now we're kind of rehearsing it after going through the training on it. Right.
Okay. Sorry, I just, like I said, I was having computer problems.
You're fine, man. No problem. I appreciate you giving this a shot.
Okay. Okay, I see. Okay. I just trying to get my head wrapped. So this is where we're literally going to start to explain what term means.
Yeah. Bingo.
All right. Okay. I'm gonna try to go off the cuffs here. Bear with me.
Man. Go for it.
All right. Okay. All right, David. So I'm sure that you've heard of term insurance before, correct?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, term. Yeah, I know what term insurance is. Correct.
Okay, great. So then we both understand that term will literally stand for terminate.
What?
And yeah,
No, term insurance cancels. I mean, term insurance is
you
permanent.
just said it right. It cancels. Yeah. So I'm glad that you've done your homework and it sounds like you know a little bit about it. It does cancel. You are right about that. It cancels generally about at 80.
No,
So
I thought that it didn't cancel. I thought term insurance lasts forever.
yeah, unfortunately, no, it terminates. Yeah. It's just like you ever use Terminex when you have like any little bugs around your house?
Yeah.
You don't want
Yeah,
those
you
with
can tell
furniture.
all these cockroaches walking around the whole time.
So it's just the same thing. Just think of Terminex, term, it all terminates. So
Okay,
the real
sure.
question I got to you is, are you going to make the decision to die before 80 or after 80?
What kind of question's that? I don't know.
Yeah, I know. It's the same kind of question I'd be asking myself if I, had term insurance. And it's like, and I've literally been with this. Like I had a client, Francis Church, and he didn't know this. And it was the weirdest thing because the guy that sold him the policy, he died before Francis turned 80. So Francis just thought that he had paid into this thing for the rest of his life, and that after 80 he didn't have to make any more payments. When in reality, it was that no, the policy just terminated. Yeah. So do you see a little bit more where I'm coming from, David?
Yeah. So what you're saying is your insurance is going to terminate, or I don't understand.
No, I just want to give you the different examples as to
Oh, okay.
what's
Okay.
available.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's coverage that terminates. I got you. Okay.
Yeah, there's coverage that terminates, and then there is what's called guaranteed acceptance. Now, if you'll take a look at this sheet right here, I'm sure you've gotten tons of these in the mail before. You'll see right here where I have it highlighted that it shows that unless you have a non-accidental death for the first 2 years, that's really, that's the key thing we're looking at. So I guess you'd have to plan to be in a car accident that's lethal so that you could actually use the policy. Do you get what I'm saying?
I think so. So I have to die by accident to get this paid?
In the first 2 years. So I know that you said that you had a couple
Really?
of health issues.
Okay.
And so that would mean that you'd have to die by accident in the first 2 years. So that's really what guaranteed issue means, is that you're not going to be covered for the first 2 years. Yeah.
Really?
How do you feel about that?
Yeah, no, that sucks. I don't want that.
Now, this is what I do, as far as what we sell. Hold on one second.
Yeah, sure.
Now, what we sell, it's the final expense whole, where we're going to actually get you covered from day one, and it's not going to terminate. Now, is that in line more with what you had in mind when you were thinking about coverage?
Yeah, it seems to make sense for sure.
Yeah, does it make sense that, day one you're covered? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no,
Does it make
that's the
sense
only way
that
I'd want it. Yeah.
if you live to 105, you still are going to have that coverage?
Right.
And I guess the really big thing, does it make sense that you start paying this amount at this age, and whenever you pass, you'll be paying the same amount? Does that make sense?
What are you saying? I don't know. Is that what your policy does?
Yeah, I'm saying that it's a level premium that stays the same throughout.
Okay.
Yeah.
What
So
do
how
you
do you
mean
feel about that?
Level like just
Imagine
video
that.
games?
Well, yeah. Well, hold on. Now imagine like the level of water. You ever use like a leveler when you're hanging something and
Okay.
it stays
Yeah.
the same?
Sure.
You want
Yeah.
it to always be the same? Well, that's how your monthly price would be. It would stay the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I understand.
So then let me ask you this, David. Out of those three, the the guaranteed issue, the term, and my package, which of those three fits best for you?
I like yours.
Awesome. And tell me a little bit, how come you like mine?
I mean, I can't outlive it, like you said. That's important. I don't want a policy that I can't depend on. And it is nice to know I'm going to pay the same price, no matter how old I get.
Yeah. I like the way that sounds. Something that, I can't use something that I can't depend on. And that's really what this is about. When you least expect this, unfortunately, that's how death happens. And that's my
Sure.
experience from my first degrees in mortuary science. And, you know, it's when you least expect it that it happens.
Right. Sure. Okay.
Are we good there, David?
Yeah, let's stop there. Can I offer some critiques and some
Please.
kind of good and what we can improve on? Okay, so first of all, I tried to mix it up this time initially. If we go back to the very beginning where we started talking about term insurance, my reply when you asked me, do you know what term insurance is? My reply was, yeah, I know what it is. And you didn't take the bait. So the bait being assuming that somebody really knows the information. You never assume. If somebody says, oh yeah, I used to sell insurance, I know what term insurance is. Like you want to say, okay, no problem. So let me just review this to make sure we're on the same page. So and then go back to your script and explain how the different term policies work. So you did that because you never want to pursue, because I tried to show right when we were talking back and forth, I was like, term insurance is good forever, right? So don't assume because someone confidently expresses that they know what it is that they're talking about actually is the case. So that was good. Another thing that you did that I highly recommend everybody do is to insert story time into every single explanation of the products that are available. Nothing gets your prospects visualizing better of the potential challenges or issues or concerns emotionally than a story from a relatable person. So you had mentioned Francis or somebody like that whose friend died from term insurance. He didn't realize it, and he didn't want to have this coverage. That's good. You also want to have stories for guaranteed acceptance, and you want to have stories for first day full coverage. So I'm going to give you guys a couple of stories. I'm going to give you a term insurance story, a guaranteed issue story, and a first day whole coverage story. I've all personally experienced this. They're all real. And the way you can communicate these to your prospect is just simply say, yeah, so my boss, Dave, who I work with, I say boss just to help our clients understand the kind of a relationship partner would work to. He told me about this particular instance where a lady in Flintstone, Georgia, took out a policy when he first started with, or had a policy with AARP for years before he had met her. And come to find out, when she turned 76, her rate went from $50 a month to $140 a month. And she didn't realize it was going to cancel at 80. But even if she did, she couldn't afford it anymore. She was making $800 a month. She had to decide between utilities, paying the insurance premium, and food. It's crazy. Nobody should be able to be in that position. And you got to think about it, Mr. Prospect. What's the point of having a policy if you can't afford to keep it, right? So that's term insurance. That's a really good story. What I just added there at the end, every senior is afraid of running out of money to some level or being broke or impoverished. So if you can connect those with your adversary, which is AARP, then you can effectively close their minds to them. That's what we're trying to do by showing them facts and, of course, sharing stories in this case. Second thing for Colonial Penn. So what I like to say is, okay, so with Colonial Penn, as far as guaranteed issue goes, Mr. Prospect, I had a client once that actually was my first client. I remember it was in Wildwood, Georgia, hot summer day, like 90 degrees. It was crazy. And he had just lost his dad. And his dad had a Colonial Penn plan. He had told his family, his kids, that he was covered. He had insurance. There was nothing to worry about. Then the worst happened. He had a massive stroke and died shortly after. He was about 12 months into his insurance, okay? And when they took the policy to the funeral home and said, let's take care of Dad's funeral this way, the funeral director handed it back and said, I'm sorry, I can't help you. And they said, why? Well, because he wasn't covered fully. Instead of this $10,000 benefit, you're only going to get $500 back. And you can't bury anybody for $500, obviously, Mr. Jones. And what did they do? They had to go into debt. They had to borrow money. in order to just get their dad into the ground. And it was a real bad situation that he was still paying off to that day. So why is that? So hopefully you can see the problem with that. The problem being that as much as term insurance is kind of like the opposite of term insurance. Term insurance is no guarantee after 80. Well, with these plans, there's no guarantee today. So, it's a risk. It is a risk. It's gambling. You might as well go to Tupelo, Mississippi and gamble, or go over to Murphy or Cherokee if you're going to do that. But you don't gamble with life insurance, right? I mean, why would you want to?
Who does that?
Who does it? Yeah. A couple of things there. So that's a good story to tell. Also, the ending point is really important. For me personally, I think a lot of the people we talk to, it may be regional. I mean, I do live in the belt buckle of the Bible Belt, but I want to relate my adversary to gambling, right? A reckless behavior that really poses no good, and it is. It's a risk that they're taking, and I tell them, look, you're better off trying it at the casino. But then I ask them, who. I really make the statement, who would want a policy like this, if you think about it, that has to take this risk? So we're saying, assuming kind of implication here that they're of sound enough mind to know that this is bad. And of course it is. It's without reason to explain, because on its surface, it's just bad by design. So, and then when I explain my coverage, I'll say, okay, so I had a client once. His name was Mr. Smith. He lived in Albany, Georgia. He was 85 when he took out $25,000 in coverage with me. He was in perfect shape. He did have a minor stroke, like a mini stroke 10 years ago. He was on 2 meds, just remarried. I mean, this guy wasn't going anywhere anytime soon. Well, then 6 months later, I got a call from his wife, or actually the insurance company, and he had died. He had died right around Thanksgiving. And the question was, well, was the policy going to pay out? And it turns out, yes, the policy did pay. Why? Because what he took out with me was a first day full coverage policy. He was fully covered from the first day. And his family was protected. And they got a nice lump sum of money to help pay down expenses, funeral costs, and other things, and to leave his second wife pretty well off. So that's why this is important, because I sat with that man, and I can tell you earnestly, I didn't think the guy was going to die. I mean, you look at this guy, he's 85, he's in awesome shape. You tell me he's going to kick the bucket? Well, people die suddenly, without expectation. So yeah, that's why it's so important to get first day full coverage. So off script there too. Share a story of that story showing the benefit of first day full coverage. Then connect it with, if he had gotten Colonial Penn, it would not have covered him. Okay, his family would have been out in the streets, and they wouldn't have been able to bury him properly like they did. And remind them, life is mortal, it's futile. We don't know when we're going to go. And I say it, I'm like, I couldn't believe this guy was going to die. Sure, he's 85, but a lot of people who are 85 live longer. He was in good shape, but then he just suddenly died. So you kind of have to remind people, as the old saying goes in this business, you got to have the client picture the hearse backed up against the front door. And it sounds kind of extreme, but there's some validity to it, I think. And that's kind of how we do it, by relaying real life stories. Any questions so far, Giovanni? I know I kind of took some time to explain that out for everybody's benefit.
No, just thank you. Yeah, I definitely will have to sprinkle in more relatable stories. Like when I was going over your script, like for example, I put a relatable kind of story. There's a part in the script like way earlier, like early in the script,
Mm-hmm.
where it says the reason my clients do business with me is because I'm known as a broker.
Right.
So after that, it says basically I'm not married to one company like American
Mm-hmm.
General or State Farm. So my little story I wrote into after that was, imagine you can only shop at the Whole Foods grocery store. Unlike that situation, I get to shop at the Kroger, the Piggly Wiggly,
Yeah.
line, and I'm going to get you not just the best price, but also the best value of coverage.
Right. You do the shopping for them. Right.
Yeah. So I think that's very important, that relatable factor. It's like, imagine I told you, David, like, hey, you can only shop at Whole Foods. So I want you to go there and you can only get what they have there. That's it. You'd be like, no, this is horrible.
Right. Yeah. You don't have options, you don't get the best price.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, that's good too. So back to what you were talking about earlier, Giovanni, on your script there. You mentioned what's good. You mentioned term, guaranteed acceptance, and then how ours works. So speaking specifically of guaranteed issue, just a couple of suggestions. Do you flesh it out? Go back and listen to how you presented. Flesh out that and I know you're doing this on the spot, of course, but flesh out that explanation a little bit more coherently. So a couple of ways to do that is and again, I know this is just a on the spot kind of thing. You didn't present the name of the company. You didn't say Colonial Penn. So make sure you say, hey, have you ever heard of Colonial Penn, the Alex Trebek guy? Yeah. So here's a brochure here, and it does what's called guaranteed acceptance. And if you read the fine print, you'll notice that only pays out non-accidental death within the first 2 years. So what does that mean? It means if you kick the bucket because of natural causes, too bad, they ain't paying. You don't got coverage. Yeah, that's right. It's like you're taking a gamble here. And then you get into the story that I talked about. I like inserting what's also called damaging admissions into different parts of my presentation. Again, I like to surprise people and make them believe, which I am, that I am less biased towards myself and more biased towards helping them than the average salesperson. So a damaging admission is a strategy or technique that basically you give props to another organization, another competitor, but you turn that advantage into a disadvantage. Okay. So one thing I like to do, if we go back to term insurance, I like to say, so Mr. Jones, AARP, it's a good plan. It does cover if you die, just like Scott was saying earlier. And really, it's pretty inexpensive. It's not that expensive. But here's the thing: it's cheap now, but extremely expensive later. It goes up every 5 years. Check out the fine print here. So I took this potentially positive thing, which can manifest itself into an objection, like I did with, I think, Scott, which was, I can get this cheaper elsewhere. It turns it into a reason why not to get it. It's too good to be true. There's a catch, right? For the guaranteed acceptance, what I'll say is the only reason I would suggest anybody to get a guaranteed acceptance policy is this: if you are sick, you're bedbound, you've got a ton of chronic conditions, you're just otherwise uninsurable. That's the only reason that it makes sense to get something like this. But if you're in decent shape like you are, you're eligible for something better. You're eligible for first day full coverage. Let me explain how that works. So always use those in there. I think it's a minor technique issue, but I think it makes a difference. Again, your sales presentation essentially is overcoming objections in advance of them manifesting, of the objections manifesting. So if we think like that, these can kind of disarm and dismantle certain issues that might be problematic, like, let me shop this around, or I don't need to wait 2 years. That's not that bad, really. Some people think that's no big deal, but we obviously want to sell why that is. And then flesh out that script of what we offer. Go into a little bit more detail. So let me explain to you how our plans work, Mr. Prospect. We do what's called final expense whole life insurance. It's designed to be an easy solution to taking care of all of your final expenses. Here's how it works. It's very simple. First of all, the rates never go up. They're as certain as the sunrise. It doesn't matter at what point you pass away. The premium stays exactly the same. The second benefit is that the coverage never cancels because of age or health. I think that's what I said, premium stays the same. So yeah, the coverage ever cancels because of age or health. So no matter what your health does or how old you get, as long as you pay the premium, you got coverage. And last but not least, this policy, unlike Colonial Penn, is first day full coverage. you have complete natural and accidental death from the first coverage from the first day. And this is what gives you the kind of peace of mind you're looking for, right? You mentioned earlier, you don't want to burden your children. Well, this plan will take care of it, not just today, but into the future, as long as you continue to keep up with the policy. So that's how I like explaining that. I keep it very simple. I don't mention cash value unless the client does. I think it's ancillary to what really matters, which is why are we selling a final expense plan? It's not cash value accumulation. We sell a final expense plan because our clients ultimately want peace of mind. They want to remove the risk of a funeral bill left to their children. And the last thought your children are thinking of the parent is, what a deadbeat. They didn't take care of this and they put it on us, and then have, anger and frustration towards them at the most important part of their lives, really just remembering their family as being good. So, yeah, do that. Let's see what else here. You did the trial close, so that was good. So Giovanni, the trial close was, so out of these three options, which one fits you best? I like asking this because when you put it back on the prospect to demonstrate or explain, what their interest level is and what they prefer, it gives them the semblance of choices, right? Mm-hmm. So what do you prefer out of these three? Do you prefer the term that cancels, the Colonial Penn that doesn't cover for 2 years, or mine that covers and never cancels? And it sounds like a stupid question. It's like, well, yeah, obviously this other crap is junk. But the reason we ask it is because the follow-up question is what's powerful. And the follow-up question is, okay, so why do you like it? You said something to that extent. And I was like, well, like you said, I can't outlive it. I don't burden my loved ones with a bill. I'll give them peace of mind. So they're sharing with you, and this is key, they're sharing their hot button concerns, right? So when you get to the next step, when you're presenting prices, what do? You say, here's the three you can afford based on your budget. And my recommendation is to get this plan because, just like you said, you want peace of mind for your children. You want to make sure there's no burial costs. This one does it the best. You can pick whatever you want, but I recommend this one. So which one works best for you? So I like doing that. And again, the clients hang themselves. I like to use that terminology. They're selling you on why they like it, right? They're telling you on why they like it in their own words. They're hearing themselves say they need this product. They're hearing themselves say, this is really beneficial. This is really good. Like, I don't know about you, but like sometimes we're the best at convincing ourselves to do something. We have to believe in it. And when they start saying it's kind of like believing in it. And it adds a level of, I think, confidence that you won't get if you don't ask them that. And they just think it. It's better to say it. So I like to get them to say it, even though the setup for it's kind of silly. Meaning, why are we asking a question that we know obviously that ours is better? Well, don't presume. I've had one or two people say, oh, I think term's better, actually. I'm like, okay, let's sell you that then. So I don't try to presume much. Oh, last thing, when they say, yeah, I like this plan because of ABC, XYZ, never goes up in price. The one thing you want to do is provide peer party validation. So what you want to say is, that's great, Mr. Prospect. Everybody I talk to says the same thing too. They don't want to burden their loved ones. They want to take care of this. And they want to make it as sensible as possible and not get ripped off in the process. So when I say everybody agrees, we all are crowd-based creatures, right? Most of us follow the crowd. There's some safety in numbers, right? So if you can say to somebody that's what everybody, or that's what almost everybody says, or whatever you want to use, that demonstrates a majority of opinions being the same, then I think that, again, solidifies, it makes people think better of their decision, right? They're not making a decision based off of bad information that very few other people are doing. They're making a sound decision that basically everybody with any sort of sense would make.
Agreed. It establishes a form of social proof.
Yes, it's social proof. Yeah, it's in a sense a social proof element. You could do, I don't know. I mean, like, it's funny you mentioned social proof. It's funny. When I first started, I used to use testimonials from clients, and I would write up a deal and I would say, hey, do you mind writing real quick a short couple of sentences explaining why you've liked this policy and your name and where you live? And I had a couple of those. That's kind of the same element, right? You know, when I was presenting and selling personal training, my favorite part of my sales presentation is, you know, I talk to them about their goals. We do a demo, work them out a little bit, get them sweating, feeling good, like this is what they want to do. And then when I go in for the close, I show them examples of, here's before and after pictures. There's a stack of surveys I did. You can look through all of them at your leisure to show you how awesome what I do is. I mean, I say it that way, but that was the implication. So the more that you can use social proof, the better. Feel free to take testimonials. That's not a bad idea. And then use those, especially in the opening, like, you know, here's some client letters of people who've done business with me and they really appreciate what I do. That's pretty powerful. Okay, I'm going to open this up. Thank you, Giovanni. I think we covered everything we need to. I appreciate you, Scott and Giovanni, for playing Prospect. Is there anybody with any questions for me? Anything related to what we talked about today that we need to cover? Or do you have any non-related questions? I'm happy to answer those as well. If you will either make a comment in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and speak to me that way. Either or is fine. Let's see. I had a good question actually from William, who's on the line here. William texted me earlier this morning, and he's got a case, and just kind of, you know, put this in the back of your memory hole. He has a case this morning where he's going up against Primerica. So part of the process of learning this business is just through exposure to different opportunities. You won't know all these different things when you start, but you will eventually if you do the presentation. So William asked me, okay, what is the best way to, you know, offset Primerica? How can I position myself against them? So first of all, Primerica is a term insurance only company. It was at one point led by A.L. Williams, who really championed the cause of buy term and invest the difference. That dramatically changed the course of the insurance business, where the majority of policies purchased are term. They don't sell anything else. The policies typically are 20 or 30-year level terms, but at age 70, they start to incrementally go up and they become annual renewable term, which means they just go up in price every year. It's either at 90 or 95, they completely cancel out. Story I had, and William, you can use this too. I had a nice lady who was, I think, about 57 when she took out this Primerica plan. She's paying like $60 a month for 40 grand, right? Well, she worked hard. She never stopped working when she hit 65. She worked in the dry cleaner part-time. So I saw her at age 83. She just had an open heart surgery. And the reason she met with me is because she couldn't work anymore. She couldn't afford her insurance. She wanted to see the other options. The only thing I could get her was a 2-year waiting period plan, which it's hard to do when they've got Primerica. But the problem when they got a first day full coverage, the problem with Primerica was her price is $300 a month, $300 a month. I mean, imagine being a fixed income senior making $1,000, paying $300 a month for insurance. It's crazy. And it was going to go up again and again and again and again. And so we ended up having to lower the face amount to just kind of stop the bleeding, but it didn't solve the problem. And this is a story I would relay to that prospect to make them understand, look, if you're running a huge risk picking up a Primerica plan. They very rarely tell you you're going to outlive the policy. They try to say it lasts till age 100 or age 95, but they don't tell you about the big price increases that come down the pike. So I try to sell conceptually why, if you're looking for life insurance to cover final expenses, conceptually, term insurance doesn't make sense, kind of like what we talked about earlier. If they believe that, they'll go buy a whole life policy from me. If they don't believe that, the good news is we can just sell them a term insurance. Look, sometimes people just insist on term. And I'm not so arrogant in my belief that one product's better than another, and I hope you aren't either, because at the end of the day, some coverage is better than none. And a covered client is a client that's paying you in commission dollars. So don't be afraid to pivot to a basic non-med term policy. A couple of examples would be Mutual of Omaha's Term Life Express product's good. Hear good things about Foresters, Assurities as well. Those are really simple to use. They're not elaborate. They don't require examinations. And typically, if you're up against Primerica, they're a lot less money. So keep that in mind. Y'all ever run into any competitors? Just holler at me like William did. I am more than happy to relay my experience and help you position yourself better. Thank you guys so much for watching today, and especially Scott and Giovanni for participating as prospects or agents, role-playing agents. If you guys need me, I'll be around. My 10 o'clock canceled, so I should be free. Other than that, hope you guys have a profitable rest of your day. Take care.